They served drinks and punchlines for 11 years, but you won't believe what happened next. One star went from America's sweetheart to complete recluse after battling depression when leaving the show too early. Another famous face cheated with 3 women in one night, yet somehow saved his marriage. And the beloved bartender who made us laugh weekly? Almost canceled after a disastrous scandal that would end careers today. After 40 years, see who's thriving, who's struggling, and who we've lost forever in this video. Ted Danson. Ted Danson didn't just play Sam Malone, he was Sam Malone for over a decade. Millions tuned in every week to watch the flirty ex-ball player behind the bar on Cheers. And when the show ended in 1993, over 80 million people watched him close it down. It was one of the biggest TV finales of all time. But while the world laughed and cheered, Danson was quietly growing tired of it all. The character that made him famous had also trapped him. Behind the scenes, he felt stuck, frustrated, and ready to move on from the womanizing bar owner persona. By the end of Cheers, Danson was going through hell. He was 45, his marriage had ended in a brutal divorce, and he had just split from Whoopi Goldberg after their very public relationship. Then came the Friars Club roast, the night he wore blackface as part of a joke between him and Goldberg. She stood by him, but the backlash was harsh and immediate. It nearly crushed him. People weren't laughing anymore. Instead, he was labeled and ridiculed. That night followed him for years, becoming a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. He later admitted he wasn't emotionally mature at the time. In an interview, he opened up and said he had been a liar in past relationships. He didn't name names, but he made it clear he had to change. That was the start of something new. Therapy, mentors, deep self-reflection. It wasn't easy, but it worked. Slowly, the man behind Sam Malone began to evolve into someone entirely different. And that new version of Ted Danson found purpose in the last place he expected: the ocean. One day, while living in Santa Monica, he took his daughters to the beach and saw a sign that said, "No swimming, water polluted." He couldn't explain it to them, and that moment changed his life. What began as confusion turned into a calling. He partnered with a friend and launched the American Oceans campaign from their basement. What started small eventually merged into Oceana, one of the biggest conservation groups in the world. Danson didn't just lend his name. He studied the science. He learned the facts. And he used his fame to spread the word. His message was simple: the oceans are dying, and if we don't act now, everything else goes down with them. From overfishing to plastic waste to offshore drilling, he fought on every front. He argued that saving the ocean would fix more than just water. It could help feed people, protect the climate, and slow down the disasters we see more often every year. By 2025, Danson's activism had made headlines again. He threw his support behind bold environmental policies like the Green New Deal and marched for climate justice. He didn't just speak out, he showed up. And as wildfires, floods, and droughts continued to grow, so did his urgency. He warned that if we don't fix this, we're going to face a world of suffering, especially for the most vulnerable. But his life wasn't all politics and protest signs. His career had quietly entered a new golden age. In The Good Place, he played a charming, complicated demon-turned-hero and earned critical praise all over again. Younger fans who had never even seen Cheers were now calling him a legend. And his latest Netflix show, A Man on the Inside, became another hit, staying in the top 10 for weeks and scoring him another Golden Globe nod. In January 2025, he's set to receive one of the highest honors in television, the Carol Burnett Award. Shelley Long. Shelley Long lit up the screen as Diane Chambers, the book-smart waitress whose sharp wit and endless ambition became the heart of Cheers. From the very first episode, she was different. She talked like she was quoting Shakespeare, carried herself like she belonged in a lecture hall, and somehow still made you laugh. For 5 seasons, Diane and Sam's back and forth gave the show its pulse. Then, in 1987, just when the show was riding high, Shelley walked away, and everything changed. Viewers were stunned. Writers panicked. Even co-creator Glenn Charles admitted that critics believed Cheers might not survive without her. At the time, the move seemed risky, even reckless. But for Shelley, it made sense. Hollywood had come calling with movie offers, and back then, film meant more prestige than TV. She'd already made waves in the money pit with Tom Hanks and earned critical nods for her performance in Irreconcilable Differences. She didn't just want to be part of something great, she wanted to grow. But there was more going on than just ambition. Shelley had recently become a mother, and long days on set didn't line up with what she wanted for her daughter Juliana. In interviews, she made it clear, spending time with her child mattered more than churning out another 22-episode season. She also felt like Cheers was repeating itself. Same stories, same tension. It was starting to feel stale, and she wasn't interested in phoning it in. So she took the leap. Still, not everything behind the scenes had been smooth. There were creative clashes. Ted Danson, her on-screen partner, later said they had tension, but it was all professional. Just 2 people with different ways of working. Then came Kelsey Grammer's character, Frasier, who started getting more lines. Some said Shelley didn't like that shift. Whether that's true or not, the feeling was clear. Her spotlight was fading. Yet, she left on her own terms, later calling Cheers one of the most satisfying experiences of her life. After Cheers, Shelley's career took some odd turns. Her first big movie after leaving was Hello Again, about a housewife who comes back from the dead. Then came Troop Beverly Hills, where she played a clueless but lovable scout leader. Neither made much of a splash. Critics were unimpressed. Audiences didn't bite. Suddenly, the decision to leave Cheers didn't seem so smart. Then came the Brady Bunch movie. Suddenly, Shelley was Carol Brady, the perfect mom in a world that didn't quite make sense. It was weird, funny, and oddly nostalgic, and it gave her career a second wind. She stuck with the role for sequels and TV spin-offs, and for a while, it looked like she'd found her lane again. Sitcoms tried to pull her back in too, like Good Advice, but they didn't stick. While all this was happening, her personal life quietly unraveled. After more than 20 years of marriage, she and Bruce Tyson separated. They divorced in 2004. By then, Shelley was pulling away from the spotlight. Her priorities had shifted. She focused on her daughter, kept her head down, and showed up only when a project truly interested her. But behind the scenes, Shelley wasn't doing well. The pressure to prove herself after Cheers had worn her down. Every flop felt like a public failure. Every article seemed to ask the same question. Did she make the wrong choice? That kind of weight eats at you. After her divorce, her struggles with depression became harder to hide. She pulled away even more. Public sightings became rare. When one photo of her surfaced in 2022, it made headlines just because it had been so long. Ted Danson later reflected that Shelley was a lot like Diane. Brilliant, demanding, intense. And maybe that was the problem. When the character is so close to who you are, it's hard to move on. By 2025, she's 75. She's mostly retired now, popping up in the occasional indie film or guest spot. Her last major role was in The Cleaner back in 2021. Rhea Perlman. Rhea Perlman didn't set out to become a television icon. But once she put on that waitress uniform and stepped behind the bar on Cheers, everything changed. Playing Carla Tortelli, she became the tough, sharp-tongued heart of the show. From the first sarcastic line to the very last episode, Rhea owned that role. She wasn't just another supporting actress. She was the spark that lit up every scene. Audiences loved her fire, her comebacks, her honesty. And the critics agreed. She got 10 Emmy nominations and won 4 of them, more than any other actor on the show. Even NBC later called Carla one of the greatest TV characters ever. But before Cheers, Rhea was still finding her way. A small part on Taxi got her noticed. That's where she worked with Danny DeVito, who would later become her husband. And from there, producers saw something in her that others hadn't. They saw grit, strength. That led to Cheers, where she stayed for the full 11 years through 275 episodes. She never left. Her sister Haida helped write and produce the show. Their dad, Philip, even appeared in over 160 episodes. It was more than a job, it was family. When the show ended, she didn't try to pretend it wasn't a big deal. She called it the best job she ever had. They all considered staying another year, and why not? As she said, when you're getting a gift every year, you take it. Off-screen, Rhea's real life was just as layered. She met DeVito in 1971 during a small play in New York. They clicked right away and married in 1982, the same year Cheers began. 3 kids followed, Lucy, Grace, and Jake. But in 2012, after 30 years, they separated. Most people expected a divorce. That never happened. As of 2025, they're still legally married, still close, still raising their grandkids together. Rhea once said their relationship actually got better after separating because the pressure was gone. They still see each other, talk often, and share the important moments, like the birth of their grandchild, Sinclair, in 2021, and another one after that. They even continue working together at their film company, Jersey Films. Rhea's not the type to fade away quietly. She kept acting after Cheers. She starred in Pearl, showed up in the Mindy Project, and stole scenes in films like Canadian Bacon and Matilda. That last one? Directed by DeVito. They played Matilda's terrible parents and nailed it. But she wasn't done. In 2023, she surprised everyone with a powerful performance as Ruth Handler, the creator of Barbie, in the hit film Barbie. It reminded everyone just how good she still is. And that's not all. Rhea also wrote a children's book series called Otto Undercover. 6 books in total, filled with wild, funny adventures. And one of them even made Child Magazine's list of best books of the year. Even now, at 77, she's still working, still writing, still showing up. George Wendt. George Wendt didn't set out to become a TV legend. When he first stepped into the bar on Cheers, his character, Norm Peterson, was supposed to be just another guy on a stool. But something about the way Wendt played him, his laid-back attitude, his perfect delivery, and that everyman charm, made people fall in love with Norm. What started as a background role turned into one of the most iconic characters in sitcom history. Every time he walked in and the bar yelled, "Norm!" it wasn't just a joke. It became a ritual. What most people didn't know was how much thought Wendt and his co-star, John Ratzenberger, put into their scenes. They came up with a kind of strange humor they called Yoka Obscura, stuff they thought no one would laugh at. But it worked. Norm wasn't just funny. He became part of people's lives. Wendt was nominated for 6 Emmy Awards in a row, and somehow he lost every time. He joked about it, but it became one of those things people remembered. How the guy who made everyone laugh never got the trophy. Even the beer wasn't as fun as it looked. Wendt once said the beer he drank was full of salt to make it foam better. It was awful. He would chug it over and over for scenes, and it made him worry about his blood pressure. Eventually, he figured out a trick. He'd only drink when the camera was actually on him. That's the kind of behind-the-scenes stuff you never see, but it shows how much effort went into making Norm look effortless. After Cheers ended, Wendt could have faded away like so many others, stuck in the shadow of his most famous role. But he didn't. At first, it was hard. People saw him as Norm, and only Norm. But instead of fighting it, he found a strange kind of peace with it. In a later interview, he talked about playing a character who, like him, was only remembered for one role. That honesty hit home. Wendt knew what it felt like to be frozen in time in other people's memories. Then came the health scare. In 2013, right before a major stage production, Wendt had chest pains and had to back out. It was serious. For someone who had always been the picture of easygoing calm, it reminded everyone, including him, that life can change in an instant. Afterward, he started weaving those real-life worries into his characters, bringing a deeper layer to his performances. Even in his 70s, Wendt hasn't disappeared. He's still working, still showing up in movies, still taking on new roles. His net worth sits somewhere between 25 and 45 million. Not bad for a guy who used to just sit at the end of a bar on TV. John Ratzenberger. Back in the early 80s, John was just another actor hoping for a break. When he auditioned for Cheers, he thought he blew it. As he walked out, convinced it was over, he suddenly turned back and pitched an idea. A bar regular who always had some random fact to share. He gave an example on the spot, explaining why the Bic pen dropped the H from bitch. It was bold, strange, and it worked. That moment gave birth to Cliff Clavin, the trivia-loving mailman who ended up on every single season of Cheers. It wasn't planned, it was instinct, and it changed everything. When Cheers ended, many assumed Ratzenberger would fade out of the spotlight. Instead, he found something even more powerful than fame: consistency. Pixar took a chance on him for Toy Story, and from there, he became their lucky charm. From The Abominable Snowman to Mac the Truck, he was in every Pixar film for 25 straight years. People made a game out of spotting him in each new release. By 2019, his box office numbers were in the billions. Then suddenly, the streak ended. No announcement, no reason. He just vanished from Pixar's voice cast. Fans still don't know why. But John Ratzenberger wasn't only focused on film. He quietly became a businessman and inventor. Back in 1989, he created an eco-friendly packaging product made from paper instead of plastic. It worked so well, he sold the company a few years later. Then he went digital, literally inventing a system that used celebrity names to bring people to websites. While others chased Hollywood roles, he went to factories across America, filming a show called Made in America. He wanted to show people how things were built and why it mattered. That mission grew into a full movement. He donated $1 million to help bring back trade skills in public schools: welding, carpentry, plumbing. He believed those jobs were just as valuable as anything in Hollywood. And he didn't just talk. He made it happen. Away from the spotlight, Ratzenberger settled into a quieter life. He was married for 2 decades, had 2 kids, and later remarried in 2012. After years in London, he moved to a small island in Washington state and stayed out of the Hollywood rush. He supported conservative politicians and was vocal about his beliefs, even when it drew criticism. But to him, speaking up was part of who he was. Kirstie Alley. When Shelley Long left Cheers, the pressure was brutal. Kirstie came in with a voice like no one else, and a character, Rebecca Howe, who wasn't trying to be another Diane. She was smart, anxious, career-obsessed, and secretly a mess. It worked. Viewers embraced her, and she turned that role into an Emmy and a Golden Globe win. Before Cheers, Alley had barely made a name for herself. She was best known for a small role in Star Trek II, but Cheers launched her into a new league. After the show, she took on more dramatic roles and even earned another Emmy. She also led her own sitcom, Veronica's Closet, and kept reinventing herself. But it wasn't always smooth. Alley struggled with weight gain and didn't hide it. She turned it into a TV show. Then she turned it into a memoir. Then a reality show. She let the public into her personal battles, unfiltered, unpolished, and completely her. And she was never afraid to speak her mind. While some in Hollywood stayed quiet about politics, Alley didn't. She supported Donald Trump. She said it cost her jobs, but she stood by it anyway. Whether people agreed with her or not, she wasn't pretending to be anyone else. Then came the shock. In late 2022, her children announced that Kirstie had died after a short, aggressive fight with colon cancer. She hadn't told the public. She kept it quiet. Just like that, one of television's most unforgettable stars was gone. At 71, Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson was just the goofy new guy on Cheers, brought in after the passing of a beloved character. At first, no one knew what to expect from him. But then something happened. Audiences connected with his innocent charm and his perfect sense of timing. That simple, small role turned into a major breakthrough. He wasn't just playing Woody Boyd. He was becoming someone people couldn't take their eyes off. Even while he was still pouring drinks on the show, he was already getting his feet wet in films. His first was a football comedy with Goldie Hawn, but that wasn't the big moment. That came later. After Cheers ended, he surprised everyone. He stepped away. Becoming a father changed his priorities, and for a while, acting took a back seat. But when he tried to come back, Hollywood didn't exactly welcome him with open arms. The roles weren't waiting like he thought they'd be. That silence could have crushed him, but it didn't. Instead, he took a massive risk. He ditched the nice guy image and took on one of the most violent, unpredictable roles anyone had seen, playing a serial killer in Natural Born Killers. It shocked people. That was the point. Suddenly, Woody Harrelson wasn't just the funny bartender, he was dangerous, unpredictable, talented in a way that forced the industry to pay attention. A few years later, he landed a role that would earn him his first Oscar nomination for playing Larry Flynt in The People vs. Larry Flynt. That performance erased any doubts. He wasn't just trying to act, he was proving that he belonged in the same breath as the best in the business. And from there, it didn't stop. From war dramas to dark comedies, blockbuster franchises to indie darlings, he became the kind of actor who could do it all. The Messenger, 3 Billboards, Zombieland, The Hunger Games. His name meant range, his work meant risk. But away from the camera, his life was far from calm. In 2002, headlines exploded over a drunken scandal in London involving 3 women and one mistake that nearly cost him his marriage. Most people would have lost everything. But instead of throwing him out, his longtime partner Laura showed a kind of forgiveness that most wouldn't believe. That same week, Woody found himself in jail after a shouting match with a cab driver. Laura bailed him out, She didn't just stay, she stayed solid. Even now, he keeps surprising people. In 2024, he starred in Suncoast, a touching indie drama that showed another side of him, a softer, more reflective one. It connected with viewers in a way that felt personal. But just when people thought he might be settling down into a quieter phase, he turned down not one, but two roles in the massively popular series The White Lotus. People thought it was about money, but it wasn't. He had a family vacation plan, and he stuck to it. Kelsey Grammer. When Cheers ended, Frasier took off. And suddenly, Kelsey wasn't just part of a great show. He was the face of one. But behind that polished, intellectual character was a man dealing with pain most people can't imagine. When he was just 13, his father was murdered, shot during a violent home invasion. Years later, his younger sister Karen was kidnapped and murdered in one of the most brutal crimes imaginable. It didn't stop there. His half-brothers died in a tragic diving accident, one trying to save the other. It was too much loss for one person to carry. But somehow, he kept going. On the outside, he seemed in control. Emmy wins, a Tony, acclaimed voice work on The Simpsons. But on the inside, he was spiraling. His drug and alcohol use got so bad that fellow actors had to stage interventions. He was arrested, fined, sentenced, and forced to clean up or lose everything. And for a while, he nearly did. There were moments when he could barely function. But then, the cameras rolled, and like a switch, he became Frasier again. It was almost supernatural. His personal life wasn't any easier. 4 marriages, public scandals, bitter divorces, children caught in the middle. At one point, he left his third wife for a much younger woman and married her just 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized. The headlines were brutal. But through all that, he kept working, kept acting, and somehow kept finding ways to evolve. In 2023, he brought Frasier back. It didn't last long, but it wasn't a failure. It was a reminder that even after decades in the business, he was still willing to try again. Even more surprising was his reconciliation with Ted Danson, ending a 30-year silence caused by drinking, resentment, and old wounds. That reunion may even lead to new work together, something fans would have never predicted. Colasanto. Colasanto wasn't just the guy who played Coach on Cheers. He was a man who had lived through war, battled personal demons, and finally found peace, just as his health began to fade. Born in Rhode Island in 1924 to Italian-American parents, he served in World War II before chasing a dream that led him to Hollywood. What viewers didn't see behind his warm, goofy character was the long fight he had waged against alcoholism. It nearly destroyed him. But in 1976, he got sober. Unfortunately, the damage had already been done. His heart was never the same again. By the time Cheers began in 1982, Colasanto was already thinking about retirement. His health was failing fast, but the role of Coach was too perfect to turn down. He played the lovable, forgetful bartender with so much heart, it's hard to imagine the show without him. As the years passed, his weight dropped, and the cast could see something was wrong. Still, he kept going. Even after a hospital stay in late 1984, he insisted on coming back to work. He was forgetting lines, but no one wanted to believe it might be the end. His last full episode had been filmed earlier, but he appeared one last time in a small scene before the season wrapped. On February 12, 1985, Nicholas died of a heart attack in his home. He was only 61. The Cheers family was devastated. Hundreds attended his funeral. He was gone, but never forgotten. Pearlman. Philip Pearlman wasn't an actor, not until late in life. He was born in Poland in 1919 and spent most of his years in the toy business, living a quiet life far from Hollywood. But fate had other plans. His daughter, Rhea Perlman, was already a star on Cheers, and when Philip moved to Los Angeles after retiring, he paid a casual visit to the set. He asked if he could be an extra. That simple question changed everything. The director gave him a spot in the background, just a guy in the bar. But the more people saw him, the more they liked him. Without any training at all, Philip had a natural rhythm. His daughter, Haida, who worked on the show, said he had this instinctive timing that just worked. Slowly, that extra became a regular. He played Phil, a barfly who cracked jokes and quietly stole scenes. He ended up appearing in 142 episodes. He wasn't just a background character anymore. He was part of the soul of the show. And his career didn't stop there. He acted in films with his son-in-law Danny DeVito, popped up in Frasier, and even appeared on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It was an unexpected second life, one filled with laughter, love, and late-blooming fame. He passed away in 2015, at the age of 95. From Poland to Hollywood, from toys to television, Philip Pearlman lived one of the most heartwarming second acts in showbiz history.